Hello and welcome to Deciphering Your Body's Clues So You Can Heal. I am Tara Meyer-Robson and I'm going to be your host for today's show. This is going to be the first and intro of my upcoming series where you can actually ask me live questions about your pain and disease and I will help translate them. In fact, I have a question for you. Sorry, just had a bunch of things pop up on my thing. I have a question for you. What if pain and disease was your body's way of telling you what was off in your mind, your body, and your life? And what if you could learn the language of the body, be able to translate those messages, and be able to use those to get yourself on the path to healing? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you today. I have been doing this work for about 15 years ago or so. For those of you that already follow me or are familiar with my work, you'll know that I'm the creator of the Flow Method, 40 Days to Total Life Transformation. I'm the creator of the Empath Institute. I specialize in working with empaths to help them have the life that they truly deserve and desire. And Body Language, Deciphering Your Body's Clues So You Can Heal. And that's sort of my course where I actually teach you how to understand the language of your body so that you can translate literally anything that happens. What's really neat when you learn to understand how to translate the messages in your body is that you will be able to use that skill for the rest of your life. Now, I decided to launch this podcast, livecast, because I get a ton of questions all the time via email. And there's so many people who honestly really need help and they just need an answer. And sometimes in the moment of being able to give those like on the spot translations, I can see the light go off, and in the light going off, something changes in their life. It can ignite healing for themselves. And so I felt that this was a great way for people to be able to ask me questions live, to be able to, for me to be able to do on the spot translations and be able to get a lot of people very quickly to understand what's that connection between your mind, body, and life. What is your body trying to tell you about what's off? And how can you bring power to it? How can you shift what's going on to be able to help with your healing process? I have helped people around the world, literally internationally, to heal from everything from shoulder pain to back pain to head pain to weird stomach issues to rashes to I don't even know. I feel like I've heard it all. I've helped people heal from diseases that were supposed to be terminal. I have helped people heal from things that I'd never heard of in my whole life. And the thing is that a lot of times it can seem like magic, but there's probably a sprinkle or two of magic in there, and I am a medical intuitive, but the truth is, this is a process that really anyone can learn. It is a process that, you know, maybe you won't necessarily get like all the things, the patterns coming together as fast as I do, but you can certainly learn the process and you can get the aha moments. However, I'm going to be your guide and help you to be able to learn these things today. Now, as we head into today's call, I will be taking live callers starting next week. This is the first episode, intro episode. I wanted to just kind of make sure I had the live stream aspect going and that I knew what I was doing with that before I actually tried to take live callers on top of it. So if you are watching on YouTube or on my Facebook page, do make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button or that follow button. And that way, every week, you will be able to see the live stream. You'll get a reminder that the live stream is coming up, and you'll be able to know exactly how to call in and speak with me. One of the things I will be doing starting next week with the live calls is, I know with health information, it can be really difficult. A lot of people have some things, and I've had, there's some personal issues that oftentimes can arise and often do arise when I'm working with people. So you will be able to also call in anonymously or via the phone, or you'll be able to jump into the Zoom webinar and you can do that anonymously as well. If you're not comfortable with your name being on there, that's totally fine with me. Like what your name is actually doesn't matter. What I'm interested in is what's going on in the body. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to lead in with a few questions that I've received in the last couple of months from people, and I'm going to give you the translations. I'm going to show you how the translation process works. And we're going to kind of talk through the steps of the translation process as well. So I hope that this is super helpful for you. I can't wait to start taking live callers next week. So let's take a look at a couple. I just grabbed some questions that I've had again via email. And I will say, as I'm heading into this, a lot of times people think that this is like, it's woo woo, it's out there, and it's really not. It's here's the thing. So people always say, well, how do you know that that's the message that my body is sending, even though it's usually very obvious. So how do you know? Like, how do you know that for sure? Is it just like woo woo? And it's really, truly not. So I like to liken this process to learning a foreign language. So I can remember when I went into freshman year of high school that I decided to take French. I do love French. I love French things. I love France, but I went to take French, and the teacher came in, and her name was Madame Cross, which I will never forget, seared into my memory. And she stood in front of the class, and she started just blasting us with French. It was just like this babble of French, and I wasn't sure what the heck she was saying. And I remember thinking I was like in the second row. I actually sat right behind this like actual genius kid. And I was like, oh God, I've made a huge mistake. Like, I'm going to fail. This is going to be horrible. I have no idea what this woman is saying. What am I going to do? And, I think that's how we feel, right? Anytime. I don't know how many of you guys have learned a foreign language, but anytime you sort of start to learn a foreign language, it's like, what is this? You have no reference point, right? For any of the words. But then by the end of the year, and I won't say I was exceptional at it because I really wasn't, but by the end of the year, she came back in and she ended up saying the exact same thing she'd said to us on the first day. And I understood everything she said. Now, why was that? Obviously, it's because I learned this word equals this word, right? It's, you learn the language, and once you've learned the language, you may get rusty with it. But as I found out when we visited Paris a few years ago, actually, I remembered a lot. I was able to hold conversations, not beautifully. I'm sure my accent wasn't great, but I was able to recall that, right? Once I'd learned that process, I was able to translate things pretty easily. And I can actually read French pretty well now. So it's the same thing. When your body is sending you messages, it's the language of the body is specific pain. It's when this started to show up, how severe it is, the kind of rash it might be. If it's a rash, the color of the rash, head pain, where it's showing up in the body is going to tell you a great deal. So the thing is basically like learning a foreign language, we aren't taught that, right? We're not taught how to translate these things. We come into the world, we're going along, we get a cold, we get pain, we get disease, and nobody's teaching us that the body is trying to talk to us. And sometimes the body is trying to scream at us. When I've had clients with just severe things where the body is literally like, I'm done. I'm like completely done. Right. So that's the thing. We aren't really taught that. But once you know how to listen, once you know how to translate these things, then it becomes just as easy as me listening to my French teacher at the end of the year. I got it. Right. And so my passion is in teaching people the language of their body and how they can actually, once they learn that language, literally anything that happens, you're going to start to think, oh, okay, that was the left side of my body and it showed up in my jaw, and my jaw means I'm, maybe holding something in and not speaking something. And you'll be able to literally, like forming a sentence in a foreign language, when you actually know how to translate the message that the body is sending you, you will have an actual sentence your body is giving you about what's off in your mind, your body, and your life. So hopefully that makes a ton of sense. As you can probably see, I'm very passionate. This is my favorite thing in the whole world to do. And a lot of times people ask me, how did you know you were meant to do this? And it really was that I was even when I was younger, I was kind of the person that a lot of people came to and would ask for my advice. I think, many of you might also be sort of natural coach kind of people. And in my particular case, I'm just really a pattern seeker. I could see the clear cause and effect in a lot of different things, and the pattern of it seemed pretty obvious to me. But it really wasn't until I got sick myself that I really decided to dig in and see if I could figure out exactly what was going on. Because I knew in my heart and soul that there was a pattern between me getting sick and all of the things that I had happen previously that were sort of leading me to that point. So I'll give you that quick story, and then we're going to jump right in and start translating some things. And so I can show you exactly how this process works. So hopefully you can be comfortable being able to call in next week and talk to me. And really quickly, I will say I am an incredibly non-judgmental person. So you can definitely call in with pretty much anything you feel like and feel really comfortable in talking to me. So in my case, I ended up developing chronic fatigue after having mononucleosis when I was about 26 years old. And I had been basically working a lot, working really hard. I was really, really stressed out because I was very, very worried in the business I was in. I was particularly concerned about the business's success because I was working for someone I love. And I'm already a perfectionist, so I put a lot of weight on that as well. We had a lot of very sort of difficult transitions going on in that business as well at that time. I had just gotten married about that time. And so there was just, there's a lot going on. And I had really no boundaries. I was just working absolutely stupid hours. And I wasn't listening to my body at all. And, I think all of us know our body will send us like kind of little warning signals that something's going off, right, in our body. Like we'll feel really, really tired all of a sudden, or we'll feel, just a slight twinge of pain, and we kind of ignore it, right? So that's the thing. If we can catch it at that little twinge of pain standpoint and shift it right then and there, then hopefully it won't progress any further than that. But in my case, I was doing a great job of ignoring it. And I was on top of it, I was trying to run a marathon for charity for kids with leukemia. I'd never run a marathon in my life. I'm not a particularly great runner. So I was basically burning the candle at every possible spot on the candle, I think. And I just burned out, and I got mono. I was told by my doctor that I needed to take 6 weeks off. I took a half a day off, really dumb, really, but I didn't feel like I could put anything down. Again, really no healthy boundaries. And then of course, needless to say, suddenly that developed into essentially chronic fatigue. And I was so exhausted that I would get up and I would be able to function for about an hour, and then I was like down again. And I'm a really high energy person, so this was absolutely awful. I mean, I think for anybody it's awful, but I tend to be a person that's on the go a lot, and it was really awful. So I ended up, I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, listen, you're going to have this, you just have to manage it for the rest of your life, is essentially what he said. And I'm not great with authority, and I was like, no, this is not happening. I'm going to figure this out. Also, I started to tune in and pay attention to the words that were coming out of my mouth. And this is one part of the translation process. Very often, we literally use words that are a literal translation to what is happening, okay, in the time. And in my example, it is that I was saying, I'm completely blown. My circuits are blown out. That's what I kept saying to the doctor. My circuits are blown out. I feel like everything's blown out, right? What I was saying, if I knew how to listen to myself at that point, is literally energetically, I was overwhelmed. I was taking in too much. I'm an empath, and I had no idea how to protect myself or stop feeling everybody else's emotions and worries. And I was over helping all the time, right? And eventually, just like trying to I imagine from A Christmas Story, where there was like that, he was plugging in all of those different plugs into, into one giant ball, and it eventually blows. That was, or not Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation. Clark Griswold, and he plugs all those things in, and eventually, the sockets, they just blow. That's essentially what was happening to me. I was plugged in too many different ways. And at that point, that's really when I dug in and was like, okay, there's clearly a pattern between the way that have the patterns in my life, the experiences in my life, the way that I'm dealing with those patterns and experiences, my belief about myself, and my ability to protect myself, which was pretty much non-existent at that point, and needing to be there for everyone all the time without any break for myself. And then what was manifesting in my body, right? This complete exhaustion. And it was also, I felt like I was being literally pulled apart at the seams. Now, how literal is that? Like literally the ache in my body was felt like it was pulling apart at the seams. And I was literally being pulled apart at the seams, right? And at that point, I knew I had something. And that's when I researched like an absolute crazy nutty professor, and I developed out the flow method. And then the flow method was really to find those underlying negative beliefs that are causing you to have these behavior patterns, negative patterns in your life, experiences that are problematic, etc., and then also to come as pain and disease in the body. So that's sort of my story. And that's where I kind of came from, how I started, like, connected the pieces. And then eventually I realized that while the flow method was really, really good, I really only touched a little bit on the pain and disease part. And that's when I broke it down and created my body language Deciphering Your Body's Clues So You Can Heal course. And that's where we really go in depth and show you exactly how to create that individualized healing plan. So that's basically my story, how I ended up doing this work, and why I'm so passionate about it, because I do see people that, they start their healing process pretty darn quickly. So as we head into this, as I start to take some of these questions that I've grabbed off my email, one thing I do want to say is this is absolutely not a replacement for proper medical advice. I always encourage people, please get a proper medical diagnosis. Please listen to your medical team. Always listen to your own intuition and gut instinct, as well as you're making decisions about any treatments and so forth that you're choosing and going forward with. However, please always get a proper medical diagnosis. It's when you get a proper medical diagnosis, then actually the body language translation is much, much tighter, much easier, because you know exactly what's going on. So please use this. This is absolutely a complement to any medical treatment that you are dealing with, because the more knowledge you bring to this, the more you can sort of connect with your own healing power and really sort of help yourself to shift in all ways. So let's go ahead and take one of these. Let's grab this one, I guess. It says, "Hey, Tara, I have a bit of a complex issue for you. I've had asthma off and on since childhood. I always thought it had something to do with allergies, but it went away completely when I was in college." Okay, so that's already one little bit of information that's going right into my brain. Like, okay, why was it there and then it went away at college? What happened when she went away at college? That was a massive shock to me, but I was happy about it. I'm assuming she means the allergies went away was a massive shock. I'm assuming. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, I'm getting asthma again. I went through station 4 stuff in the course. Okay, so this was from somebody that's in the body language course, but I'm still having a hard time. And station 4 is dealing with your emotional connection to life. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going, but I'm still having a hard time making a connection. Any idea what might be going on? Do you think I'm getting allergies again, or what's up with this? I know I've had a lot of stress going on with my mom lately, so that's another little clue. So it's literally deciphering your body's, there's just clues, there's little breadcrumbs. I'm about to move away from my home city for a job opportunity, and a lot of feelings have surfaced about that. Thanks for taking a look at this for me. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna give names. So she said she had asthma on and off since childhood. Okay, so asthma, whenever I look at asthma is that you are feeling absolutely smothered and like you don't have the right to fully take in a breath. A lot of times when I see kids with asthma, we're looking at a smother situation. So what that means is they may have really, really overbearing parents, or very controlling parents, or parents that are just literally not giving them much breathing space. So right off the bat, I'd be saying that this person probably had that kind of a childhood where she didn't have breathing space. Something was smothering her, and very likely a parent. I'm guessing mom, since she's already talking about mom in this. I always thought it had something to do with allergies, but it went away completely when she went to college. So for me, that's kind of a verification that this was something very specific that was smothering her in childhood, right? Because the moment she left for college, she had breathing space, right? I can remember going off to college, and as much as I miss my family, I also was excited about the opportunity, right? And maybe any of you who've gone to college or had that kind of transition out of the family home to whatever, your first home on your own, it's, you do feel like you've come into your own person and you can make your own decisions, and you don't have anybody telling you, what time you're going to bed and what you're doing. There's a lot of breathing space there. So that would be my guess. There was something controlling, smothering as a kid. So she said that was a massive shock to me. So she was shocked that the allergies went away when she went to college, but I was happy about it. Okay. Yeah, that would be surprising if you were having asthma that long. Now, all of a sudden, I'm getting asthma again. Okay, so immediately I'm thinking to myself, there's a trigger. Now, whenever I talk about a trigger, that means that there's something very similar to whatever caused the issue previously. Okay, and so what happens is our subconscious minds just record this as a frequency, sort of a neural pathway, or just an energy frequency that's going on. So when we encounter a similar frequency or pattern to whatever it was that sort of was at the heart of the original issue, we will see a resurgence of that in that particular issue. Another example I can give you is that most people will have a specific way that their body will tell them that they're run down or their immune system's shutting down because they have too much stress. So for instance, one person might always get a chest cold, another person might always get a sore throat. And that's what I'm talking about. A similar stressor, a similar process, when your body's trying to say to you, okay, you're run down, it's going to show up in the same way. So my guess is there's a very specific trigger that is very similar to when she was a kid going on here. So she said, do you think I'm getting allergies again? Yeah, I don't know that it was allergies. Like I'm not sure it was allergies originally. And she said she went through the station 4 stuff. So probably what that probably means is that I have a flow factor test, and that identifies in which of 7 areas of your mind, body, and life you have what I call out of the flow, underlying, unconscious, not your fault, beliefs. And it pinpoints that area for you. So in her case, she must have had station 4 come up really high. And again, station 4 is your emotional connection to life. So any idea what might be going on? Okay, I've had a lot of stress with my mom lately. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm gonna say that, I think probably her mom was maybe overbearing or controlling or smothering when she was a kid. Perhaps, well, I would say more than perhaps, wasn't giving her breathing space, wasn't allowing her to maybe have some choices that were her own or be her own person. And she's saying, I'm about to move away from my home city for a job opportunity. A lot of feelings have surfaced about that. Yeah. So I think what's happening here, I would be willing to bet, and I will give you an update on the next show if this is right. I'll reach out to this person. But I am willing to bet that her mom is really unhappy about her moving away from her home city, is probably dumping loads and loads of guilt and trying to do whatever she can to control that decision. And she doesn't have breathing space. It's like having somebody sitting on her again. And I'd be interested to see like how she's actually, what asthma is looking like to her. What does it feel like to her? I mean, asthma is asthma, and there's always this like gripping. So there's going to be a fear component to it. So gripping for me, whenever I'm dealing with gripping pain, gripping in the chest, that's fear. If you think about when something happens, let's say you're on a train and the train suddenly stops, and what do? You grip onto something really quickly. That's what your body's doing too when you're having an issue about anxiety or generally really fear type stuff. So I am pretty certain that the asthma is being triggered right now by this like smothers situation by the mom who is having a hard time with her moving away or making a decision to move away for this new job. And it may be sort of like ringing the joy, because she says she has a lot of feelings have surfaced about it. So I'm going to be very interested. I'll try to give an update next show as soon as I can get an info on that. So to kind of take you through really quickly the process that I'm doing whenever I do these translations, it's really a 7-step process. I don't do it all in order, but when I teach other people how to do it, it's a 7-step process. So the first step is we're looking at what side of the body is being affected. Now, in her case, the asthma was both sides. I'm assuming she didn't say it was one side or the other. But if we're looking at like the left side, I'm usually looking at a female in that person's life. If we're looking at the right side, I'm usually looking at a male in that person's life, or it can also be a person who presents as female or male, right? We all know people, women that are more male and males that are more female, the energy they put out or whatever. So that can also be, but mostly it's a male or a female. Step 2 is I'm always looking at like how long the issue has been affecting this person. In this particular case, it's been affecting her since childhood. Then it went away when she went to college. And then now it started up again. And so again, when I'm looking at that, if it's affected them for a long time, it's been something with roots in childhood, I'm pretty sure about what was going on there. There's also, if it's a disease, what stage is it at? So it's really interesting, and we'll get into that a little bit more because I'm going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes. But when I'm looking at staging, there's, cancer is obviously staged, but there's also a lot of different diseases that are staged. When you're looking at the like lower staging, stage 1 usually is, it could be something in the last 6 months. We're looking at maybe a traumatic event, or a traumatic trigger that has caused this. If we're looking at something all the way to like stage 4, we're either looking at some severe trauma that sort of like kicked this whole thing off, or more than likely, we're looking at something that really has a deep, long root. We're looking at maybe something all the way from childhood. Step 3 is I ask people to identify or describe the pain or illness. And you'd be amazed how literal it is when someone describes it. Someone will describe a pain as stabbing, right? What do you imagine? Like, oh, I have a stabbing pain in my head, right? So you immediately are like, oh, okay, something's attacking that person, right? It's that like psycho thing. An ache usually is like a heartache situation, right? Where somebody's heartbroken. Oh, I'm aching for that, right? So what does it look like? So the way that something presents itself oftentimes will tell you like kind of what's going on. So a rash that's red, or, well, let's just say a rash that's red. Red is, if we even think about it, the cool thing is, I think intuitively we as humans have associated colors with the correct like emotional response. So we're actually accidentally translating it, even sort of intuitively, not knowing we're doing it. When you think about red, like I'm seeing red, you're angry, right? And a lot of times if I have somebody who has a red eye, like their eyes are red, if both eyes are red, then they really just don't like what they're seeing in general. But if it's like just one eye, then I'm looking at, okay, who in their life, male or female, depending on the side, is making them see red. It can be that literal. That's the crazy thing. Lumps and bumps, cysts are much softer. So they're an energy blockage, but it's a little bit more fluid. When we're looking at something like a tumor or a bone spur, bone spurs are usually hardened wounds that have happened over a long time. And oftentimes I'll get, the one that I find really fascinating, I get a lot of people with bone spurs that are sort of sticking out, right? They're like, and the image I always get on that is like, if you remember if you've ever watched any of the old like movies about Greek Roman, whatever, and they had the chariots, and on the sides of the chariot wheels, they had those giant spurs, and the spurs were to kind of like keep people, right, from scooting too much over by their chariot, and it like protected them in war situations or could cut out the other person's wheel, that kind of thing. I'm not a spur expert, but that's the image I always get when somebody comes to me and they've got like bone spurs sticking out. And the reason for that is that it usually tells me that they are feeling very attacked, and depending on where it shows up in the body, it can tell me who's attacking them and what it's making them feel like. But that means they're like literally trying to, kind of like that chariot wheel, they're trying to put spurs out to keep this person at bay. And then again, and rashes are really interesting. Rashes are always irritation, but the way that they present themselves can be different things. So like a scaly rash, that kind of thing, where you're creating like a second layer kind of thing, is usually, and depending on where it is in the body, it'll tell you who and what is going on. But it's usually you trying to literally create a second skin to protect yourself. It's almost like trying to create a little bit of armor there. So that one's kind of interesting to me, but all of these different things can show you, when you know how to translate it, how the body's speaking, it just tells you the whole story. So when the part of the body is functioning normally, what's its purpose and function, and what is physically going wrong? So that's kind of step 4 in my brain. So just to give you a quick example, and I think as the show goes on, we could take live callers. There'll be a lot more examples of this. If you have a muscle spasm, what's going wrong? Well, the muscle shouldn't be gripping. And as I talked about a second ago, so a muscle gripping is telling me that there is a lot of fear. And then where it's showing up in the body is telling me what's going on, what's making them feel like they've got to hold on to like protect themselves or grip onto something, right? I'll have actually people that have muscle spasms in their hands, and that will really tell me that they are literally trying to grab at or hold on to something. Oftentimes it'll be someone like going through a divorce, or someone leaving, a child who's gotten old enough to move out, and they're having a hard time, a lot of emotions around that, and they're literally trying to grab onto that person. So again, it's usually really, really literal. And I'm going to go through this really fast since I'm trying to keep this to a half an hour. It looks like I'm going to run over. And then what areas of the body are affected and what flow station would that be? So what I talked about a minute ago, the flow stations are really part of my methodology. And it is the 7 areas of your mind, body, and life where you may have out of the flow beliefs. And the reason that this is so important is because you may have noticed in your life that you'll have some areas of your life that are just really easy, no problems, everything's cool, everything seems to flow. And other areas of your life that you just have like repeat negative experiences. Maybe you keep dating the same kind of person again and again and again, even though you say you're never going to date that person ever again. What's going on there is that in one of those 7 stations, you have underlying unconscious, very unconscious beliefs that have been programmed in. Now, where did they come from? They came from authority figures in your life, parents, religious figures, teachers, coaches. As you were a child growing up, what you saw them do, what they told you to do, all of those kinds of things, as well as your own experiences as you've grown, okay? And when you have a negative belief that is sort of rooted in there, again, they're unconscious, you don't know they're there. And then what's happening is it's actually looking out at life and it's trying to tune you in like a radio station to a certain frequency of experience. And that's why you'll end up having those kinds of things where you're like, I'm never dating a person like that again. And then, whoo, out of all the zillion people you could date, right? Here they come again, same exact person, basically. So when you can get to the root of that and be able to really specifically retune that particular belief, then you change the frequency you're tuning into completely. And that's where it'll show up in your body and it'll show up in your life. And that's where this connection really comes in as far as those things. We'll talk more about the stations next time, but that's the sort of quick overview. And then again, step 6 is if they have, so to identify those underlying beliefs, I have something called my flow factor test that is in my book, The Flow Method, 40 Days to Total Life Transformation. If you want to grab one, you can. It's on Amazon and I think at most major booksellers. But in there is a test because it's like, well, how do you get to that underlying belief? I mean, it's unconscious. How do you know where it is? And that was really the research I did. That's what I wanted to know. And so my test allows you to be able to pinpoint that underlying belief and be able to identify it. And then it takes you through the process of shifting it specifically in a way that works for you. So that's basically the process. I apologize, I only got through one translation today, but next week I'm very much looking forward to being able to take live callers, be able to answer your questions, and be able to hopefully help as many people as I possibly can through this podcast and livecast. If you are interested in jumping into my body language course, please do so. I would love to have you. We have a great group there. In the body language course, not only will you find out specifically how you can translate any pain or disease that you're dealing with, but also it takes you through the very customized process of developing out your own individualized healing action plan that shifts everything for you at once. And the reason it works so effectively is not only do you pinpoint, you get your full translation, you get your message from your body, you pinpoint these specific underlying beliefs that are causing you problems. And then it takes you through a process of being able to use your strongest parts, your strongest ways of learning, and able to create this action plan that works for you individually. So if you're interested in doing that, I'd love to have you. It also includes live calls with me, as well as open office hour times twice a month, which allow you to have 20-minute sessions with me, and I can, in private, be able to translate the message and be able to give you any suggestions I have for getting you on the path to healing. So if you want to do that, that's at my website, tarameyer-robson.com. /body language body language. So thank you so much for being here for my very first episode of Deciphering Your Body's Clues So You Can Heal. I hope that this has been informative to you, and I really hope that in the future I'll be able to take a call from you and be able to help you to translate the message in your pain and disease. Until next time, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again soon.